Ever clicked on a website, waited and thought, why is this taking so long? And yeah, I know we've all been there because as developers, we know the struggle of keeping our sites lightning fast and up to date. And combining both seems impossible. But what if I tell you that there's a way to have the best of both worlds, fast site and fresh content, without breaking anything? And that's why we enter ISR today, incremental static regeneration. Because this technique is totally underrated and you can save so much cost with that. So let me show you how it works and why it's a total game changer for your Next.js app. So let's jump into this simple sketch where I'm going to explain how things are going on. Because the usual behavior is we have a request to a server and we get a response. The problem with that is that it's kind of slow. The good thing with that is that we get up-to-date data. A different approach would be if we go directly to a CDN. A CDN is a content delivery network, something that serves cached content, which is pretty fast. So the good thing here is it's fast, but the bad thing is it's not up-to-date. And that is a problem because now we can decide, do we do the slow way of doing things? This would be client-side rendering or server-side rendering, where we fetch data with every request, or do we want something that is pretty fast, but not up to date? For example, static site generation. We have static data. This is really fast. It's generated at build time, so it comes directly from the CDN, but it's not real time. We have no real-time information here. And that's where ISR jumps in, incremental static regeneration. So with incremental static regeneration, we ask for some data and we get it directly from the CDN, but then we specify a revalidation timer. And if this revalidation timer ends, for example, 60 seconds, then our database goes to the CDN and updates the data. So for example, every 60 seconds. We can specify whatever we want here. We can say 1 hour, 10 hours, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever you want. And the nice thing with that is now if a request comes in and the revalidation timer has ended, then the old data is returned. But behind the scenes, something is happening because this arrow goes to the server, says, hey, my revalidation timer has ended, and the server is updating the data. So that's kind of like magic, and I want to show you how to implement this. So we are now back in the code with probably the simplest example out there, and we're just fetching some time. We have a simple async page, fetching async data, and then we're just printing that on the screen. It looks like that. So we have time and the request time, and every time we refresh the page, the data is getting updated, as you can see right here. Okay, so now there are different approaches to accomplish ISR into your project. So one thing you could do is you can say export const revalidate to equal 60 seconds. Now with exporting this constant, Next.js sees that, or the compiler sees that, and knows that this page has to be revalidated every 60 seconds. You can go with any value you want here. For example, 3600 would be 1 hour. You can do 60 seconds. You can just do 10 seconds. And this is page revalidation, so ISR on page level. And on page level means that the whole page is getting refreshed, which is really useful if you have, for example, Sanity or Payload, so a CMS system for a blog or something like that. But if you have a fetch request, like me here, for example, there's a different way, the fetch level, because the page level revalidation is not influencing the fetch revalidation. Because for the fetch revalidation, we can do something different. We can say here, next, and this is an object with a field called revalidate in here, and we can specify, for example, 10 seconds here. And if we take a look into the site and we refresh the page, then we see there's up-to-date data. And if we do a refresh now, nothing happens because it's getting cached. And if we refresh again after some seconds, then you see it's getting revalidated and we get fresh data again. And as you can see here with Next.js 15, this is still a static route. So we have a very fast site right now with a static route, and we have up-to-date data, for example, every 10 seconds, but you can do every minutes, every hours, whatever you want. So if I refresh now, this is getting updated. And this is very great. But why is this so underrated? I said it in the title and in the beginning of the video that this is an underrated approach. Why is that so? Because it's very hard to accomplish a fast web page and a up-to-date web page. Because that's the best of both worlds, right? We want that our site is very fast, but we don't want that the data is too old. And now we can combine both, and this is just awesome. The problem with ISR is it's just not known very much, and I really see that not often into projects. But you can save so much with that. You can actually save a lot of costs. For example, your app is used by 1 million users. And your 1 million users, do 10 million requests every day. Imagine you have to pay for those 10 million requests every day. You don't want that. And if you say revalidating, for example, every 10 minutes or every hour, because your data doesn't need to be up to date very much, maybe you're updating it every day, but not every second, then you're saving so much requests, and saving requests is always saving costs. And that's why this technique is very underrated, because you can save a lot for your company. But I know caching is quite complex, because we have some more things like revalidate path, we have revalidate tag, we can import something like unstable cache, for example, unstable cache live, unstable cache tag. There's a lot. And if you want to see a video about that, you're on this channel completely in the right place, but it's not out yet, but it will come. And if you don't want to miss that, subscribe now. Okay, maybe you're interested in some more detail, and I will give you that because I have this diagram here. And this diagram tells you how ISR is really working in detail. So if you haven't understood it until yet, now you will do. So we have a user request and we have a build process. So if we start a build, we get into the build process, we generate static pages, and we have those static pages now from the CDN that can be delivered. Now we have a user request, and then we are looking, does the page exist? If it exists, we serve a static page. If it's not existent, we generate a page, and the static page is exactly from here. So it comes from the CDN. So if we don't have, we generate it. If we have it, then we look at, is the revalidation time passed? And if it passed, we trigger a regeneration. If it's not passed, no problem, we can just deliver from the CDN. But when the regeneration is triggered, we regenerate the page in the background. So the user doesn't have a long request here, it's just getting the old data, but in the background, the whole thing is getting regenerated. And if the regeneration is then successful, we just update the static page. If it's not successful, we just keep the old version. That's how ISR is working, but usually you are successful, you update, or the server updates the static page and serves the updated page for the next request. And that's how ISR is working. It's not that complex once you see this diagram here, but yeah, now I check your knowledge. What rendering strategy would you use for an e-commerce website? And what rendering strategy would you use for a chat app? I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, that's the last question I want to give you an answer on today. When to use ISR and when to not use ISR. And the simple answer for that is every time you have, for example, a CMS, a content management system, for example, Payload or Sanity, you have static data that's getting updated. So ISR is perfect. So an e-commerce website would be perfect for that. A blog would be perfect for that. And every time you have real-time data, for example, a chat app or a real-time dashboards, then you need up-to-date real-time data, and then you need CSR or SSR, so client-side rendering or server-side rendering. And that's it. That's the whole magic. So if you are interested in more Next.js stuff, for example, click at that video here. This is about Next.js server actions and how they got updated in Next.js 15. If not, thank you for watching this video.